The Florida Gators transfer portal approach has been interesting when you pair it with the coaching staff. I think I could track at least some of it.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Brandon Olsen, your host, lifelong Florida Gators fan, and we're going to talk a bit today about the Florida Gators transfer portal approach, which again, I think is really interesting. Because I've like floated this a little bit. We've talked about it a little bit before. But the Florida Gators right now, or we'll go back to when Jon Sumrall got hired, right? When Jon Sumrall got hired, he went out and he got two coaches that I think are very good coordinators. He got Buster Faulkner, who I think is one of the best coordinators in college football right now. And he got Brad White, who I'm not going to say is one of the best coordinators in college football right now, but I do think has been a successful SEC coordinator for over half a decade at this point. And that deserves credit, right? Like anytime that we talk about Kentucky, we talk about how their defense always gives Florida fits. We talk about how, their run game always gives Florida fits as well. But whenever we talk about Kentucky, we always go, hey, that defense. All right. Every time we go, hey, that defense, like the offense makes things messy offensively, but their defense gives them a chance against anybody. That's what it is, right? Like their offense is messy, it's ugly, it's gross. Like I've said before, like it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to make things ugly and hideous on offense. But man, defensively, they're going to be gross. Like they're going to be really good, gross in a good way this time. But they're going to be really good defensively, and they're going to give their offense a fighting chance to try to get something going and try to put some kind of points on the board. So yeah, I'll say Brad White's a good defensive coordinator. And so Jon Sumrall got hired, made sure he got the coordinator hires right. Okay. Then the most important parts, where football is won and lost is in the trenches, right? The New York Mets are getting Bo Bichette. Look at that. Gotta love live recording. I'm a Mets fan, so I get to be happy about something, at least for once in my life there. But then we talk about where football is won and lost, right? And it's the trenches. And offensive line coach Jon Sumrall went out, got Phil Trautwein. Okay? Was playing for the Florida Gators, was successful with the Florida Gators. Duke has concerns the star quarterback Darian Mensah could enter the transfer portal. Miami? Maybe. Just saying. Maybe. But Jon Sumrall goes out and gets Phil Trautwein, who has years of success at the Power 4 level, years of success at Penn State, which has had a very good offensive line in most, if not all, of the years that he was there. This year, they had a good offensive line, even despite injuries and needing to reshuffle. They just had a good offensive line. And so he went and got high-quality offensive line coaches, or an offensive line coach. Defensively, he retained Gerald Chapman, who is the only on-field coach that was retained. Nickel's coach, Dawan Wilkins, was not an on-field position coach last year, and he's been retained as an on-field position coach this time. But he retained Gerald Chapman, who is one hell of a defensive line coach, one of the better defensive line coaches in the country, again. And that's what I'll say. I'll say that both of them are one of the better. I'm not going to say best or one of the best. Like I'm not going to do that, but I will say that they're both one of the better offensive line or one of the better position coaches at their respective positions in the country on the trenches. That's where the heavy investment was, in the trenches. Okay. At receivers coach, at running backs coach, all the other coaches that we've talked about were, I don't want to say relative unknowns, but were not, you know, proven hot commodity position coaches that everyone was going crazy for. Right. In fact, a lot of them were met with, um, how do we put this? Not the best reaction at times when their names first came out. Right. A lot of it was met with, who is that guy? I don't know anything about him. All right. And then there's other position coaches like Joe Craddock, um, Greg Gasparito. Like there's some coaches that came over, Evan McKissick, that were coming over from Tulane and took reduced roles. Those were also not these big name hires. The big name hires came at coordinators and trenches, where we always say again, like those are the spots that win and lose football games, right? So you got that. Then they went into the portal and look at their. I'm going to go through all of their portal additions so far, at least as they are listed on On3, and all their portal additions again last year or this year on On3. You got in order, and I believe this is in order of commitment: DJ Coleman, Lakota Dipri, Bailey Stockton, DK Kalu, Evan Pryor, TJ Shanahan, Aaron Philo, Alec Clark, Patrick Durkin, Egan Boyer, Emmanuel Ibadejo, Micah Mays, Cam Dooley, London Montgomery, Carter Milleron, Emeka Ugorji, Harrison Moore, Eric Singleton Jr., Luke Harpring, Miller Feely, TJ Bullard, Kanye Clark, Samu, what is that? Huge loss for Toronto. Samu Tamanu Pepe, screwed it up that time. But the Florida Gators went out and got that. And none of those are really big name players, right? None of those guys were the guys at their position. There were some, like you could talk about Samu Tamanu Pepe might be the biggest guy at his position, right? 375 pounds. Talk about DJ Coleman was one of my favorite safeties around. You could talk about Emmanuel Ibadejo as one of the more, we'll say one of the more sought after defensive linemen in the transfer portal. I think that's fair to say, right? I think it's fair, right? Texas A&M, Missouri, Florida, all SEC programs took the visit to Florida, and then A&M was like, you know what? I'm not even going to the Missouri one. I'm going to commit to Florida. You got TJ Shanahan, who is a rotational player at Penn State. You have Egan Boyer, who's a backup at Penn State. You have Emeka Ugorji, who was a starter at Stanford but played horrible. You have Harrison Moore, who was, and by played horrible, I mean production-wise. You have Harrison Moore, who was at Georgia Tech at center and left guard. And that's what you did in the trenches, right? None of those names were huge names. Emmanuel Ibadejo was a big ad that everybody loved. TJ Shanahan is someone that I think is going to be a starter. But outside of that, they didn't heavily invest there, right? The names like Emeka Ugorji, like Samu Tamanu Pepe, both of them were met with much, we'll say, chagrin from the fan base, right? Egan Boyer was not. I can't explain why. Just gonna be honest about that one. He's got maybe the least production out of anybody, but not exactly big spending there. Despite how much many like myself and yourself may have wanted them to big spend there, they didn't. We'll talk about why when we get back with Locked On Gators. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. So each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like most. So you make your picks, then you apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official, by the way, just want to throw that out, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. None of these other ones that aren't actual official ones. We got the official. And grab your profit boost back every NFL playoff game day. Also, the same offer stands for college, which has one more game on Monday that I think we all know who we're rooting for in that one. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. Broncos. Hate that, man. Oof. Just gonna be honest with you. I just realized also your name literally has Toronto Blue Jays in it. Just noticed that. But appreciate you for Bo Bichette. He's a player I like and like to use in MLB The Show. So I like his swing. So I'm good with that one. But like I mentioned, Florida, again, the trench players that they added, again, in order of adding them, DK Kalu from Baylor, backup at Baylor, rotational player at Baylor. Okay. TJ Shanahan from Penn State, a rotational, sometimes starter if there was an injury or anything, offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. Egan Boyer, depth offensive tackle. I say depth because I don't even view him as, just backup, because he didn't play until the bowl game, really. Played like 5 snaps up until the bowl game. Emmanuel Oyebadejo, who is going to be, by the way, on swampsignal.substack.com, Emmanuel Oyebadejo is going to be the next scouting report we have come out. I'm not sure if it's going to come out today or tomorrow, but he's going to be the next scouting report that we have coming out. Defensive lineman from Jacksonville State. Good player, right? Good player. Wasn't a huge name, but good. Started picking up traction. Then you have Emeka Gorgie, who is, again, met with just a ton of skepticism from the Florida Gators fan base because his production is not good, right? But again, but we'll talk about it. Harrison Moore, Georgia Tech starter, good quality player there. And then, of course, last night, Samu Tamanu-Pepe was an addition there and did not play at Texas A&M or Baylor. Looking through them, just again, in order, DK Kalu, rotational player. I think that his role is going to be rotation, if not pure depth, not even rotation. I'm good with that ad then, right? You're getting a bit of experience, multiple years of eligibility there. That's how you're supposed to be doing it. TJ Shanahan, someone that I think is going to be a starter this year at guard. Watching his film, I like what he did in pass pro, in run blocking. I think he creates stalemates more than he actually goes and wins the battle, which irritates me. I do think he's really good on power, by the way, or I don't want to say just power. Anything where he's pulling, I think he's really good. I think he brings a lot to the table there. So I'm looking forward to that. Egan Boyer played okay against Clemson. Important to remember, like, that was a bowl game against Clemson, but it was a lot of Clemson backups because they had opt-outs from the defensive line. So, all right, solid-ish performance, very, very hot and cold. But again, you weren't facing starters at all from a Clemson team that wasn't nearly as good as they usually are this year. Defensive lineman Emmanuel Oyebadejo is someone that was sought after by, again, Texas A&M, Florida, Missouri, and had other schools wanting to bring him in, but not getting him in there. He's someone that the more I've watched him, the more I'm like, I don't know if he's going to start, but if he's not starting, he's going to play a lot of snaps. Okay. Jon Sumrall has mentioned, they made a not insignificant investment in bringing Emmanuel Oyebadejo financially, right? Like, they paid him. They paid him to get here. That's fine. That's what college football is now. But they made a not insignificant investment to get him. Okay? He's coming here to play and to play a significant role. And he should, by the way. He's productive at Jacksonville State. His film's pretty good at Jacksonville State. Which, again, scouting report is going to come out on swampsignal.substack.com either today or tomorrow. But either way, like the film's good. Okay. Someone that I think will translate, obviously great size. Depending on where you look, he's 6'7", 315, 320, whatever it may be. The Jacksonville State website had him listed as, I want to say 295. And so he's someone who could play multiple spots on the defensive line, played multiple spots on the defensive line at Jacksonville State, and is now coming over. By the way, I'll say this right now. One of my favorite things about Emmanuel Oyebadejo is something that I love every defensive lineman doing, is that when you're not winning your pass rush rep, because again, that's the thing. Even being a great defensive lineman, it's like baseball, right? Like, even being a great hitter, great defensive lineman, you're losing more often than not in terms of like actually generating pressure, right? In baseball, in terms of actually getting a hit, you're losing more often than not, but you get hit 300 and everyone's like, oh my goodness, he's such a good hitter, right? With Jacksonville State or with rushing the passer, you can generate pressure on not even 25% of your times, just because, again, like pass rush win rate that you see often and actually generating pressure are two different things. And so you can not even have a high pressure rate, but you're still a good pass rusher, especially when you talk about in football, you have, teams will game plan around stopping you there. And so you have that. Emmanuel Abadejo is a player that I like. Yeah, big fan of his film there. And I think he's considered maybe like the big investment. Maybe TJ Shanahan was a pretty, I don't know. Again, I'm not saying financially. I'm saying in terms of like going for a guy where you go like, this is our proven starter. Harrison Moore is that on the offensive line. TJ Shanahan, I think, is going to be that on the offensive line. Emmanuel Abadejo is going to be that on the defensive line, I think. Or again, even if you're not a starter, significant contributor. Emeka Ugorji with Stanford is someone that I mentioned was met with much skepticism and criticism when he committed to Florida. And it's fair. All right. He had, I think it was like 24 pressures allowed, 7 sacks allowed at Stanford last year. But context matters, right? Emeka Ugorji was a low 3-star coming out of high school that ended up starting in the Power 4. All right. Started at Stanford, ACC's Power 4. He was a low 3-star tackle that ended up starting at the Power 4 level. And he ended up starting most of his games at guard. So he's a tackle freshman playing guard. What that tells me is he's a low 3-star, meaning like I'm not trying to be repetitive. I'm trying to just break this down, like trying to bunch everything up as to what it is and then break it down as to why he didn't play well last year, right? You've got low 3-star, meaning like I don't want any true freshman coming in and being a significant contributor on the offensive line. I don't care who it is. I don't think I've had one where I'm like, oh yeah, I want him to be a significant contributor on the offensive line. So Emeka Ugorji was that. Yeah, true freshmen generally get their asses kicked on the offensive line. He's a tackle that was playing guard. Not surprising. He got his ass kicked on the offensive line. Like he got his ass kicked last year, but he was supposed to get his ass kicked. I'm fine with it, honestly. Like he's a true freshman that got that playing time, got that experience. He's going to compete for playing time this year, compete for a starting spot this year. And if he doesn't win, honestly, I would just redshirt him. If you're not going to start, you should redshirt and still have 3 years of eligibility after this year. Call that one a day. All right, let's make you great. You've got experience now. If you lose a starting battle, why burn another year of eligibility? Let's just keep developing you, and then you can have 3 years of starting experience after this. All right. Harrison Moore coming over from Georgia Tech as a center and a left guard. When his scouting report comes out, it's going to be just one scouting report, but I will acknowledge like the differences between him at center and guard and how he performed there. Because, I know it's just one spot over, but the responsibilities are considerably different. And the level of play can be considerably different when we're talking about guys playing those two different positions. And honestly, he's someone that I view as like, I think he's going to start. I don't know where he's going to start though, right? O-line is a lost craft in high school, gets developed in college. Yeah, that's why I tell you all the time, and I say it all the time, like offensive line development has never been worse. Even in the NFL, like there's no quality depth offensive lineman. There's not, like name a team where you could lose 2 starting offensive linemen and still have a respectable offensive line. The Eagles can't even do it. That's supposed to be their thing. That's supposed to be their shtick, right? Offensive line development is bad right now. I do think it's going to take an upswing shortly, but right now it's rough. But and part of that, by the way, is because like who used to be these big dominant offensive linemen, like they're great athletes. Now a lot of them are also playing defense and making money doing that. Like defensive tackles, premium defensive tackles get paid more than premium guards, so they flip sides. Harrison Moore, I think, is someone that's good enough for you to say, all right, he's going to start. It's just which spot should he start at? And I don't think you need to say which spot is he better at. I think you need to say which spot do we have another player that's starter quality at? If Jason Zandamela is a starter quality center, start Harrison Moore at guard. I'm cool with it. If he's not, start Harrison Moore at center and start someone else at guard, right? And the last player, Samu Tamunupepe, coming in, 375 pounds, no production. Like he was brought here to be depth, right? And I know this is the one that for some reason people are upset about, where they're just like, man, we're bringing in nobodies on the defensive line. You're not wrong. Okay. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying like you brought in a nobody to be a nobody. Like you brought him in to be depth. You didn't bring in Samu Tamanopepe to be a starting defensive lineman right now. He's got 2 years of eligibility. Develop him for that time and maybe get something. I think that the reason Florida didn't invest significantly in big names in the portal on the trenches is because they invested significantly in the coaching staff on the offensive line in the trenches, right? Defensive line as well, but in the trenches. I think they were like, you know what? We're investing significantly in the coaching staff here, and we're going to trust our coaches to develop those guys. And then we're going to invest significantly at other positions on the roster where we didn't invest significantly in the coaching staff. And I think that's the trade-off. I think that's what it is. That's the only thing I could think of with why it went the way that it did. Where like the portal's not done yet, but it's mostly over. And I think that's how the math works out for Florida as they're wrapping this up. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen. This short bonus episode, short, 21 minutes. But shorter than we usually do, right? But thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free reference to the podcast and on YouTube. For Brandon Olsen, for Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my Florida Gators written work with swampsignal.substack.com. We got scouting reports coming out on the whole portal class. And I will see you all next time. Maybe today if there's a commit. Maybe. But I'll see you all next time.